Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Carrie Waltz and I share tips, tools, and techniques for the artist in you. And today I'm going to revisit a hike that my husband and I took to High Falls State Park here in the state of Georgia. I went with him a few weeks ago in between two trips to the Smokies. I was testing out my hiking so that I could see if I could hike with a toe that I had broken a few weeks prior. So it was just a beautiful, beautiful day. And I used the DaVinci Eye app to sketch out the drawing. If you haven't seen how to use the DaVinci Eye and you're interested, I will put a link somewhere up here and you can check out the video that I made for that. It should have been posted previous to this one. So I'm just going to share with you how I would paint if I had been painting on location, but I'm not on location. I'm doing it from the comforts of my home. So follow along with me if you want. Okay, I have things set up where it would be similar to this if I was on location. When I do waterfalls, I really like to draw ahead of time where the water is going to be so I can paint around it. And I have my two small limited palettes. The colors will be listed in the show notes. I have a secure paper towel so I can clean my brush. This is a scrap piece of index card so that I can test colors. And then I have a water brush. My water brush is not full, but that should be plenty of water for this particular painting. The things I want to do before I get started is determine how do I paint this tree when the sky behind it looks darker. So when you see this on the video is kind of enhanced through this phone. So that's it was a absolutely beautiful day, I have to say, but I don't know that the color was quite that bright. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to, again, start with the background, what's furthest away from me, which is the sky. But as I paint the sky, I'm not going to paint parts of it where this lighter tree is, even though I probably could paint over it with a little bit of gouache. I'm going to see if I can do this without adding gouache. Gouache is a water-based opaque paint. It's always good to clean your brush before you start a painting. Okay, so the colors that I have that are blue are the ultramarine, French ultramarine blue here, and the peacock blue. And I look up here for clean palette and it really isn't. And when I want to do a fairly decent size, sometimes I just want to have a little more of a puddle because I don't really want this too dark. Watercolor does dry lighter, but anyway, so I'm going to pick up a little of this, dab it here, add a touch of peacock blue to it, doesn't take much, and I'm going to test my color. It's not going to be as intense as that, but that's okay. It's going to get too dark. All right, I don't mind going over my trunk because most of it, when I squint my eyes, my trunk's darker. But if I cannot go over this part that's in the light, then I won't have too much of a transition. You know, you won't see, because watercolor is transparent. If I painted this part of the tree blue and not this one, then when I painted the trunk, it wouldn't look right. So, okay, also, I'm going to tilt my paper slightly because I want the darkest blue to be toward the horizon. I mean, not toward the horizon. So I'm going to paint where some of the blue is, and I'm letting it tilt away from me so that the darker bits will be toward the top. Just pick up a little bit more. I'm looking there's no green through here. And I'm just leaving little bits of it where I can fill it in later. By keeping it lighter at the bottom and already having it drawn off is very helpful. And that's one reason why I have it tilted, because I want it to puddle. If it's going to puddle, I want it to puddle up there. Some of these are harder edges, so I'm just going to come in with a little wet because yellow and blue make green anyway, so I don't mind if some of that'll blur in when I do the leaves, but I really don't want those hard edges, because if you look at the foliage, it's and squint your eyes, you don't see. It's all kind of blurred out. So that's my thinking anyway. All right. I think we're good with the sky at this point. All right. Normally watercolor, and I can already see where it's going to make blooms in here, where part of my paper was, I added more water and it pushed where that was starting to dry. I'm not going to worry about it. It's in a journal. All right. Sometimes when I'm working with waterfalls, instead of going always from light to dark, if I did light to dark, I would do all the browns first, and then I would be putting in these darks last. But sometimes I find it easier because the water creates the darkness on the rocks, and it kind of frames in where the waterfall is. Sometimes with waterfalls, I choose to put in some of the dark before the medium tones. So I'm going to do that today because of that reason. So I'm going to pick up more of the ultramarine blue, a little bit of the burnt sienna. When I squint, part of the darks are dark blue, part of the darks are dark brown. That's okay because I can lean this toward the brown or toward the blue, either way. So I'm going to start with what's really further away because I'm right-handed, so I'm going to be coming this direction, and I would rather work in the direction that I won't put my hand in it. So the darkest, some of the darkest dark in this painting is around some foliage there, and I'm not even sure if I drew that. Let me look. I don't think I did. Well, I'll just put it right in here. I'm going to probably come back anyway. But again, I don't want a hard edge on the foliage because it's greenery up above, and some of it is in the light. Trying to pay attention to, I think all of that is pretty dark. Maybe not all of that, but it's okay. Close enough. And some of it comes up in here. See, even using the Da Vinci eye, just because you traced it doesn't mean you know where everything's going to go, and that's okay too. So I kind of established the dark there. There's kind of a bump in the hill, and I don't know that I got that, but it's okay. It's no big deal. All right, I'm going to make a little bit more of that. That was not as dark as I thought it would be because I had more water in my brush. All right, so now let's really pay attention to where the darks are. The darks right here by that little shrub, and there's some dark along the top of that rock. There's a little bit of dark in through here with some of the rocks. And what I really like, if I can lay my brush down and get some of the dry brush effect, there's a little bit here. Dry brush effect means I'm not getting a solid line per se. I'm getting kind of broken lines. And this is a rock, and there's some broken lines there. I ran into the water just a little bit, but that's okay. There's some broken lines here. Sorry, I do that funny sound. Okay. Paying attention to the bend of the water. It kind of comes in here and then comes in that direction and drags out. So that'll make a little bit more sense when I get the brown in. There's a little ledge up here that is formed. All right, I need a little more dark down in here. Let me get rid of that. It's helpful if I don't, I'm not sure what that, there we go. Along this part is really pretty blue and dark, and more solid coming this direction. And I can always come back and make it darker. It's a little solid in through here, and then comes in, kind of lays down. Look at your directional strokes of the, which way do the rocks lay, and just try to look for the dark. There's dark right beside the waterfall. It goes up here. It needs to be a little bluer. I'll come back and fill that in a minute. It goes this direction, falls this way, and the water is right along here. Get a little closer. I don't know if you can hear my cat. It's Riley crying. She's funny. Okay, and then there's a bigger rock here. It's really dark right in here where the tree grows out of, and a little bit coming up from that. I'll lay my brush down and see if I can get just some texture. Yeah, kind of like that, and then the texture across here. See how that just adds to the feel? I'm almost laying. It's like vertical to the, or I mean horizontal to the paper. Looks kind of a hot mess right now. Well, I hope it turns out. You never know. Okay, I can do this now because the sky is dry. I'm putting in the shadows where some of the shadows are on the trunk of the tree. Notice I'm not doing just straight lines everywhere. I want to just have them kind of broken. I think it adds more interest. And of course, when you look at the tree, there are a lot of broken lines in the shadows. There's another rock shadow right here. Okay. Sorry. That, I don't know why I started doing that, clicking on my tongue. Hope that doesn't annoy you too much. Guess you can always turn down the volume. I don't want to finish the line work of the tree just yet because I want the foliage to be established. So I'm going to wipe my brush off of that dark color. And everything is dry in the sky. So while I'm on the sky, oops, cancel. I'm going to, I need to mix a light green, and since my yellow was not very clean, that's about the perfect yellow. So I'll kind of clean up my yellow in the process of getting the color I need. And again, on this one, I'm just trying to fill in where the light was, and I'm going to just go off up here. I can do teeny little dots if I wanted to, but it's just a matter of laying in, trying to cover up where I left it, and I'm going to pick up a little of that dark. And I also want to create a little bit of dimension so it's not just all one shade, because leaves and anything that has form has more than one tone to it. If you want it to look flat, it's all one color. So I'm just putting in a little bit of variation in here. So again, you can get really teeny tiny. I'm just barely touching the paper. While I have this color, that's lighter than what's there. So I'm going to kind of mix those two together. And I'm going to come back here and start laying in right on top of the shadow color, because the shadow color that I put was blue. And that's the joy of watercolor is transparent. So if you have blue underneath, then you put green on top, it'll kind of blend together and make sense, and that's okay. So that's an easy way to just lay in some color. That needs to have some shadow under it, even though you don't really see much of it. So I'm just gonna pick a little bit of the blue and just dab that in. While this is still wet, I also want to indicate that fall is coming. So there's a little bit of brown. Might be too brown, but maybe let's make it a little more vibrant. Make it more a redder brown. Just so the foliage isn't the same. You want to add just a variety. And I'm doing this while it's wet, so it gives the illusion of more than one kind of tree. Okay, while I have that color, I like that color, so I'm going to pay attention again to where my water is. Oops, forgot a green. Let's get this green in. That'll help. Some green here, a little bit of green grass in this area, a little bit of scraggly grass over here. We'll put a little bit, come back to that later. Okay, now I want to go back to my brown, which is, I added burnt sienna to that, and I'm looking for my light areas. There's a tiny bit here. Again, what did I say about transparent colors? Watercolor is transparent. So now I'm just looking to see where the rocks are, and I'm filling it in with brown, just right on top of where my shadow color was. I could have started the opposite direction and done the brown first, but sometimes it's easier for me to lay in where the shadows are going to be and then paint around that. Okay, it's getting a little grayer in through here, but I'll try to pay attention to that and not paint over. There's a bridge way in the distance, and I don't know that you'll even be able to see that. Not going to worry about it. Okay, I'm getting confused here. Okay, this is the rock. I want the rocks to be a different shade than the tree. So it's very, very similar in reality when you look at the photo, but I think this will be helpful for you to see. There's always more than one way to create a painting. You don't always have to do it the same format. Okay, I'm liking that. I'm seeing the water. Okay, now this right here, do you see how you've got the dark around and the water splits a little bit up there? I haven't done that. So in order to do that, I get my burnt sienna, well, my ultramarine blue and my burnt sienna again. That's a little bluer, so I want to make sure it leans toward the blue instead of, sorry, I was just looking again. I'm hoping I'm not on slow motion. I accidentally did that a week or so ago. Really messed up. It's a lesson learned. Okay, so I'm coming back in here, getting what's closest to the water darker, because what's closer to the water is wet, and when it's wet, the rocks are darker. So it's all pretty dark in through here. So I'm going to take this darker color and just paint on top of the rocks that I started with. And I'm looking again to where the darkest dark is close to the water. And I'm going to drag, whoops, I'm too much on my brush. I want to drag a little bit of the gray tone, the bluish tone in the water, because it's not always pure white. Matter of fact, many times it's not. That's too even. Lift off some of that. Wanted it more blurred. Now what's happened is the top has gotten a little grayer than I wanted it when I squint my eyes. Again, I've lost a little bit of the brightness there. That was really the lightest part of the water. And I've also noticed I didn't leave a little white down here. I'm going to see if I can lift it. If you wet watercolor, sometimes you can lift it off to the point it will be enough not to have to come in with gouache or a pen. So I'm coming back in. It's still kind of damp, and I'm trying to do some more definition of some of the rocks below. Where it's a medium dark, add a little bit of just different strokes, different, I look where it's slightly different color, just making it look more like rocks, hopefully. All right, when I look over here compared to my photograph, I probably need to make back here a little darker and cut in around this tree or shrub, whatever it is up here. Don't go away. So you see I'm coming in at a different angle just so that I can cut into that and make it a little more, I don't know, whatever kind of, just change its shape a little bit. Okay, I need to add a little bit of variation down below here too, so it reads more like it's in that there's a little shadow under it. Plants, everything in nature, it casts shadows. And so now I'm adding a little more dark back here. That didn't really look dark enough. I want, see that all of this is the same, so I need to break it up. I want some darker behind it, so to push that forward. Need a little more water so it's not so much the same. Take off some extra water. See, there's a little shrub there, one there. Just, I'm trying to create the illusion of depth. And when things are overlapping, like here, this could come back a little bit. If I add a little dark here, along here. This is in front of that, that's in front of that, and so on. You can kind of get carried away with that too. So I want to, I haven't really backed up to look at this from a distance, and it's looking okay. The thing I want to reemphasize is these scattered shadow patterns. I drug my brush a minute ago up here to create some of the texture. I'm going to try again, make it a little darker. It's hard. Holding my hand up in the air, and I might just need to lay it down. My brush might be too wet. What I'm trying to do, I just do it with let me just do it with barely touching, is a lot of this is the shadow, cast shadow of this tree. And I also want to create a little more variation in the rock. And all I do to create variation is directional strokes in different colors, trying to emphasize what is the darkest dark in my shadows. The darkest dark, the warmest dark is right here. So it needs to lean toward the brown because it's a warm dark. So I need to make it darker and warmer because it's warm colors come toward you, cool colors recede. So I'm going to bring that a little closer, and it comes down here just a little bit, and I can drag that out. Ooh. All right, now my brush has a little more dryness to it, and I want to drag things out this direction. There, whoop, went too high. Okay, if you go too high, wipe your brush off, clean it good, come back with just water, clean that up. Okay, now I want to add a little more brown, lighter brown, to the light areas of the trunk. So my trunk should now be dry, and I can come back over what I've already done, paint the brown where it wasn't. I can still just paint brown, and that's fine. See how tiny? I just love these brushes. Whoop, that got a little heavier than I want, but that can always lift some of it off if I want. Sorry, talking to myself. It happens. If I want to add tinier branches, whoops, I can get a different brush. But to be totally honest, this is fine. I don't need to be too concerned that I don't have every branch drawn that I see. And see if any, yeah, they go off the page. Okay, this I pulled back in another, this is another photo where I had it a little further away. I'm going to make this part a little darker just to push the tree forward. If what's behind it's darker, then it'll stand out more. Still want part of that a little darker. So too blue. Add more brown. I can add a little brown to the edge of the tree trunk as well. Make little parts of it a little darker because, like we said, watercolor dries lighter. Now we have these branches down here and you don't even really see because they're connected to such tiny limbs. You don't always see every limb that from a distance, but if it bothers you, barely touch, barely. And voila, there we go. Okay, at a glance, the only thing that I don't really like is the hard edge of these shrub, the trees in the distance. I didn't have the paper wet when I painted them. Sometimes I can come in, let's have a little green on that. Sometimes I can come in and add color, wipe the color off, and then squeeze a little water next to it so it softens the line. Because it's in the distance, I'd rather it have a soft line rather than a real smooth one. Sometimes you can really mess something up in the process too when you do that because you're coming back after the fact. Ooh, that's too green. If something's too green, you want to tone it down, you add something opposite on the color wheel. And I added a little bit of the burnt sienna, which has some orange tones in it. So I'm just seeing how dark the foliage is right through there, and I'm going to make it a little darker because it is in the shadows. You know, the sun is to the left. All right, I'm okay with that. What do you think? I said Brad and I hiked High Falls to test my broken toe, and we did that on October 9th of 2023. So now I have that documented and I can move on to the next page. Just a reminder, the way I protect the page that I have, this is a piece of freezer paper, and I just have it folded to where it slides right over the page that I need to protect. I have a Gibbs Garden was the next thing that next place we went. So sometimes when I don't get a chance to paint on location, if I want to save a page, I go ahead and write what I want the entry to be, so I know not to paint here, that I'll come back and put something from Gibbs Garden. So hope you enjoyed today. I'm so thankful I did not hit the slow motion button, so I should be able to upload this and get it out for you soon. Thanks for watching. If anything's been helpful, please give me a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't. I have several people that watch that don't subscribe. I mean, I appreciate you watching, but I'd really love it if you'd subscribe. So anyway, have a wonderful day, and I will see you soon.